the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians the revival of an ancient conflict recorded in the Bible?
The nation of Israel is a resurrected nation. What if there was going to be a resurrection of another people, an enemy people of Israel?
The Dragon's Prophecy, in theaters October 6th and 8th. Streaming and DVDs available October 9th. Get the film at thedragonsprophecyfilm.com.
Coming up, The Dragon's Prophecy is less than a week away, so don't dawdle. Get your tickets. Go to thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. I'm going to talk today about FBI Director James Comey, now under indictment, now facing arrest. I'm going to talk about why that's one down, but hopefully a lot more to go. I'm also going to have Eric Trump, CEO of the Trump Organization, the younger son of Donald Trump. He has a new book out called Under Siege, which describes in granular detail the efforts to destroy his family and get his dad. We're going to talk about this new book on political persecution. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube or X or Rumble, listening on Apple or Spotify, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe, the follow, the notifications button. That would be great. I'd appreciate it. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
I want to talk in this opening segment about James Comey and the wonderful fact of his indictment. He's going to have to turn himself in soon. He's going to experience some handcuffs and a mugshot. Now, whether that will be made public, I'm not sure. But this is one down. Hopefully one down, a lot more to go. And then I'm also going to talk a little bit about the presence of some 275 or so FBI agents on January 6th. It gives a whole new interpretation. I mean, we all knew that there were agents. We just didn't know there were that many. And this is that many from one organization. There were other undercover people from the Capitol Police, from other intelligence agencies. I mean, 1,000 people went in the Capitol. And just think about it. Think about what it means if 300 of those or 400 of those were basically cops in disguise. So I'll talk about all that else. Let me start by talking a little bit about the new film, because it is, well, 1 week from today is October 7th. 1 week from today is the second anniversary of an event of, I would say, not just historic significance, not just another terrorist attack, not even epical significance, really of biblical significance. This is, I think, wonderfully unfurled in this movie, and unfurled even for people of a secular mindset, because you're shown remarkable parallels and remarkable things, and some of those things come out of the Bible, but you don't even have to be an ardent believer to go, wow, that is fascinating, that is amazing, that is not something that can be safely dismissed. The events we're living through seem to be part of an unfolding of biblical, not just biblical narrative, but biblical prophecy. And then, of course, behind it, shoring up the credibility, reinforcing the authenticity, confirming the historicity of the Bible, biblical archaeology. And there's just an introduction, a kind of taste of it in the film, but enough to fill you with a sense of wonder, and certainly if you're a believer, a sense of excitement that all of this is real, all of it is true, it really happened. We need the pastors to figure this out. I mean, they talk about it and they ask us to believe on faith, and we do, and we have believed on faith for 2,000 years. But hey, when there's some external corroboration, that confirms that your faith is standing on a solid foundation, God is speaking back through the stones, Let's get on board. Let's figure it out. Let's bring this into our understanding of the Bible. It's certainly going to help with communicating the truths of the Bible to people who don't know, or even people who are somewhat skeptical. One cool thing about the film I do want to mention, use of AI. So we are on the cutting edge here, and particularly when we're dealing with ancient events, like we recreate, for example, the ancient pilgrims. So I'm standing on the pilgrimage road, and these are the ruins of the old pavement that led from the pool of Siloam, which is where Jesus healed a blind man. And Jesus would routinely bathe in the pool of Siloam, and he would walk up this road. And I'm standing on that road, the road that Jesus walked. And then through the sort of wonders of AI, the road is sort of reconstructed. And you can see it as it was in Jesus' time, with all the pilgrims walking, with people selling doves and selling loaves of bread and exchanging coins, and all the scenes out of the Bible where Mary and Joseph lost Jesus at the age of 12, and there he was in the temple, or Jesus arguing with the rabbis, or Jesus, by and large, preaching and teaching. All of this kind of comes to life. So we integrate our own footage in Israel with some riveting conversations, but then intermixed with that, we're able to recreate or revive ancient scenes through some very nifty use of AI. It's all in the film. I'm sure this is all going to become standard fare at some point in Hollywood, but we want to be in the front of it, and indeed we are. Now, let's turn to Comey for a while. I have to admit I take a certain personal delight in all this. Comey was the FBI director, by the way, when my case went up with the Obama administration. The FBI allocated $100,000 to investigate my kind of minor $20,000 infraction, my giving too much money to Wendy Long, a college friend of mine. And you know what? They put me in handcuffs, and now it's Comey's turn. So there is a little part of me that feels that this is a measure of justice. What goes around comes around. This man who misused his power in such blatant ways, not just with me, but also with Michael Flynn and also with others, he's getting his comeuppance. And look, some people think he'll get off. Maybe he will. But you've heard the slogan, the process is the punishment. He's going to have to hire a team of very good criminal defense attorneys. The government has unlimited resources. They can bury him in motions and legal work, and he has to reply to this and answer that, and he has to produce all his documents. They'll take his computers, they'll take his phones, and all of this is what happened to all the people that Comey, went after. And I'm talking about went after unjustly. I'm not talking about the FBI going after people who have actually done criminal misdeeds. But let's remember that Comey is just one guy. And I don't even think he is the main guy. Of course, he's a high up, and it is good to have a high-profile guy doing the bidding of the Democrats be called to account. But what about Brennan? What about Clapper? What about the 51 intelligence officials who put out all that false information about Hunter Biden's laptop? What about Hillary, and what about Obama? Now, Hillary Clinton cooked up the dossier, and maybe that is not a crime. It's dirty tricks. It is downright low. Obviously, the Clintons are right out of the gutter, and it's gutter politics, and that is despicable. But maybe it's not illegal. But Obama is a whole different matter. Mobilizing the instruments of government to cook up a false accusation against the leading candidate of the opposing party, not just to try to prevent him from being elected, but once he's elected, to try to ruin his presidency. I mean, this is something that borders on treason. I mean, this is, and again, I'm not discussing so much the legality of it, because you could say, well, he has immunity, Dinesh. He did those things while he was in office. First of all, I'm not sure if he has immunity for this. This goes beyond the normal conduct of his duties. This is almost like a orchestrated plot to destroy our constitutional system. And by the way, Obama is completely capable of it. I'm quite convinced the guy is a sociopath, a psychopath, if you want to call him that, a guy with virtually no conscience. And it's bad enough not to have a conscience, but There is one step even worse than that, and that is somebody who considers good to be evil and evil to be good. So it's one thing to say, I won't do good. It's one thing to say, I will succumb to evil. It's another thing to create such a moral inversion that you defend what is evil as good, and you defend what is good and you attack what is good as evil. And Obama comes very close to this, which is why sometimes Debbie and I say half-jokingly, but only half-jokingly, that this guy is on a direct mission from the devil. Now, I see that Brennan is going out and making the television rounds, basically, I think, to take the heat off of himself. He says things like, and they border on the comical, well, I don't think they have a really good case against me. Well, I mean, I don't think that's a fairly common thing for high-level criminals to say. I don't think they got anything. I don't think they're going to catch me. I think I got away with it. But I don't think he did get away with it. And one of the, let's just hope that in the DOJ, there is a thorough investigation of scrutinizing every contact, every connection, every email, every meeting, the minutes of every meeting, to have maximum accountability here, not just for Comey, but also for the entire gang. Now, let's turn to January 6th, and we now have documentation and even acknowledgement from the FBI. 275 plainclothes agents in the crowd. Question number one, why haven't we known this all along? There have been multiple hearings. There was a January 6th committee. Why don't we already know this? The answer, of course, is the January 6th committee itself actively suppressed it. The January 6th committee was a sham committee. They didn't want you to know. Christopher Wray didn't want you to know, and therefore he would say things like, well, we might have had a few agents. I don't really know the number. The Democratic gang prevented this information from getting out, and Republicans like Liz Cheney, but not only Liz Cheney, helped them to do it. They were part of the same cabal. Now, as I said a few minutes ago, we're talking about a crowd. The crowd was maybe 8 to 10,000, 1,000 or fewer than 1,000 get in the Capitol. What does it mean to have 275 FBI agents and maybe a total number of agents that now, I mean, we're probably grossly underestimating it. What was it, 300? Was it 400? 500? What does that actually mean? That means really that a significant percentage of people in plain clothes and maybe even in Trump hats who went in the Capitol were cops. And by cops, I mean they were informants or they were undercover agents. Let's just say that they were in the pay of the U.S. government. So now the actions of Nancy Pelosi and others denying additional security, allowing these doors to be porous, cops who are high-fiving the so-called protesters as they go in. Is this a case of one FBI agent recognizing his buddy? They had lunch, 3 weeks ago. They are high-fiving each other. It's like, hey, I know who you are. Good to see ya. You're posing as a Trump supporter, aren't you? I mean, this is the emerging full reality of the situation. And the other thing that is an obvious question is, if you have that many agents, let's just say you have 300 agents and 1,000 people going into the Capitol. Are you seriously telling me that those agents were not in a position to control the crowd, to stop them from going in, to block the entrances? Of course they were, unless their mission was the exact opposite, unless their mission was to push these people toward the Capitol, and then to egg them into the Capitol, and then to cajole them to do things while they were in the Capitol. And maybe the FBI agents were right in there doing it with them. Or if not the FBI agents, the other undercover agents acting on behalf of agencies that we, to this day, don't even know about. Now, it's also telling, isn't it, that if you have 275 FBI agents, you kind of wonder, why haven't these agents come forward? Why haven't they said, you know what? I got to tell you, I was one of a large number of people, people with badges. We were told to take off our badges, dress in plain clothes. We were there. We were part of a large group. No one has said that. Not these FBI agents haven't come forward to fess up. And what does that tell you? Well, I think what it tells you is not that these people are leftists or that they are Antifa, but what it tells you is that these are people ultimately for whom the security of a job, the prospect of a promotion, the idea of being one of the boys, the notion that your bosses are looking approvingly on you, the idea of getting a year-end bonus, all of this matters more to them than truth, than public honesty, than patriotism. So it's hard to have admiration for these people. They're not the worst of people. They're not committing heinous offenses, but they are, you could call them good Nazis. And I think you'll understand the spirit in which I'm saying that. They'll do what they're told. They'll follow orders. And then when the wind changes, they'll be willing to do the same for the other side. I'm sure part of the reason these guys are saying, you don't need to fire us because guess what? We can be your Gestapo. We can follow your rules. You tell us who to raid. We're ready to do it. So they are functionaries, in other words. They are really the sort of degraded product of modern society. And now there were some FBI agents privately, it turns out. John Solomon has reported this in Just the News. There were agents inside the system who raised the alarm and who said, hey, I think we're going too far. I think we're doing some political targeting here. All of that was shut down. All of that was ignored. The authorities were like, don't say anything about it. This is what the decision makers have decided to do. So this is a new understanding of January 6th. I mean, I think we knew that something was up. I think we knew from the Whitmer kidnapping that they had rehearsed for this. So the idea that this was a setup job, it was staged, people were sort of pushed into the Capitol, it was a trap. I think we were well aware of all this. So what we're getting now is piece by piece corroboration of the details of it. And it shows you what a shameless regime we were under for the past 4 years. And I hope it convinces you that very sharp and severe actions need to be taken. Some of them are just starting, but we are not even close to have gone far enough here. We need to slam these people for what they did. We need to make sure that every law that was broken is going to have people called to account for it. We need to have not just Comey, but a much wider gang of people, maybe including some people from the January 6th committee and others facing investigations, facing indictments, being led away in handcuffs. You've heard me talk about movement mortgage and reverse mortgages on my podcast. Most people who are over 62 and close to or in retirement think that reverse mortgages are to be avoided and something that is not good for them or not good for their kids. Well, you should get the truth. I read a book, kind of opened my eyes. It debunks the myths. It shows that most people should look at these reverse mortgages as soon as they turn 62 and not as a last resort. You can get this book free from our trusted partner, Movement Mortgage. Very simple. Go to movement.com/Dinesh, or you can call 580-REVERSE, 580-738-3773, NMLS ID 39179. Friends, the stock market sitting at all-time highs can have you exposed to three major risks: being over-allocated in stocks, inflation weakening your dollar, and taxes, the single biggest retirement expense for many people. If you're heavily in tech names like Nvidia and Apple, you could be hit hard by the next market correction. Now, this is why I've partnered with my friends at Lassiter Capital. They help everyday investors access a valuable tool that can build wealth, real estate. These are hard assets that deliver what Lassiter calls the 4 keys to investment success: cash flow, equity, appreciation, and powerful tax advantages. Lassiter Capital is finding opportunities right now that can help protect your wealth and grow it for the future. Go today to LassiterCapital.com. That's Lasater, LassiterCapital.com/Dinesh, or call 817-912-1569. That's 817-912-1569 to schedule your free, no obligation consultation. Guys, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to the podcast a man who needs no introduction. It is Eric Trump, maybe the quieter son, I may have to say, of the Trump family, but also the CEO, the executive vice president of the Trump organization globally. So this is a man who runs an iconic brand and a massive global empire. We're here to talk about his new book. It's called Under Siege: The Siege My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation, a book that is, by the way, rocketed up to #1 on Amazon and a bunch of the other charts. The website is erictrumpbook.com. Eric, what a pleasure. Thank you for joining me. As I was mentioning to you, I just did Laura Trump's show on my film, The Dragon's Prophecy, out this week. I'm delighted to be talking to you about your book, but also just about the big events going around in the world right now. Notably, I came to this country in the late 70s. I have seen so many presidents cook up peace plans: Jimmy Carter, the Clinton plan, of course, Obama turning over Egypt to the Muslim Brotherhood. Many people have tried, and really pretty much all of them have failed. I think your dad is on the verge here of doing something completely historic. How does it feel to watch this all kind of up close and personal?
Listen, he's my best friend. He's the greatest. The job that he's done around the world is incredible. I mean, I've been there, Dinesh, with him in the room as he's literally kept countries from going to war with one another. And yet, Barack Hussein Obama, as he likes to call him, is the one that's getting Nobel Peace Prizes. I mean, he's the one man who doesn't want to get into war. He wants peace, not just obviously in the U.S. and safety in the U.S., but he wants it globally. He was the guy in 2016 when we never thought peace in the Middle East was even imaginable, that was going out and saying, I'm going to create peace in the Middle East. And all of a sudden you had the Abraham Accords and you had so many other things. And, the Middle East has actually turned into one of the great allies of America. You obviously see the reaction to Iran from almost everyone, where, everybody's in lockstep. No one wants war anywhere around the world. And I can't tell you how many wars he's avoided when kind of the old neocons, that we're used to for so many years, all they wanted to do is bring the United States to war. Frankly, on both sides of the aisle. Look how much money we spent in Iraq and Afghanistan. What was it, close to $7 trillion? You could have rebuilt the entire United States for that amount of money. And my father always thought it was senseless. And he always wanted to have the greatest military in the world, where if you ever had to go to war, you would absolutely crush the enemy and do so decisively. But always prayed that he would never have to use it. And he's kept this country out of endless wars and senseless wars and costly wars. And I'm very proud of him for that.
I mean, I almost see in your dad a little bit of his past as a construction guy and a builder. And what I mean by that is he looks at Gaza, he sees all these broken buildings, all this rubble, and I'm sure he's thinking, like, what a waste. And so when your dad says things like it could be a Riviera and people go, oh, this guy doesn't even know the first thing about what's going on, he's actually imagining possibilities that other people haven't thought of. And not only that, he actually knows what it's like to put up buildings. He knows what it's like to rebuild a country. He knows what it's like to give people an alternative of a nice place to live, a job to look forward to, a safe neighborhood. Your dad has been instrumental in building those things. You are also right now. And in a sense, your dad just wants to export that to this war-torn part of the world.
He's one of the greatest construction guys. Listen, Dinesh, my entire life has been construction, right? I mean, I built the biggest skyscrapers in the world. I know that world better than anyone. I grew up starting at 11 years old on construction sites under my father. If there's one thing that our family knows, it's construction. We know it incredibly well. If there's one thing that man knows, when he said, listen, I'm going to build a wall, and when I say I'm going to build a wall, I'm going to build a wall, it's going to be the best wall. he meant it. When he says that, Gaza could be, truly a metropolis. I mean, you look at the land, you look at, on the Med and the sea frontage and everything. I mean, he means it. There's no one that's put down more concrete than my father. There's no one that's laid more bricks than my father. There's no one that knows curtain wall and HVAC better than Donald Trump. And so, yeah, I find those comments humorous too. But listen, when you see the suffering around the world, you see, two kids that look identical in Ukraine, and they're in the trenches and they come around a little corner and, about 2 pounds of force and somebody's life gets expunged. It's so unnecessary. The thousands of hours to build these kids, to groom them, the parents that love them, and they're just sitting there dead in a trench. He really has very little tolerance for that. He's the one person who does not want to go to war. He wants to see peace on earth, and he's worked tirelessly. And by the way, they don't make it easy on the guy. I mean, they have not made it easy on the guy in any circumstance, especially with a country for a very long time who did anything they could to boost the, kind of industrial military complex, as we all know very well. But no, I'm very proud of my father for stopping a lot of endless wars. There are mothers and fathers out there right now who have kids who are alive, because he called up leaders of countries and said, listen, stop this nonsense. Like, we're not doing this. And we're not doing this. And you're not going to be looked on favorably by the United States if you do.
That is awesome stuff. Eric, you're running a large business with tentacles all over the world. It must have been a priority for you to set time aside to write a book. Talk to me a little bit about The Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation. What made you want to write this book, and what are you trying to accomplish with it?
Well, Dinesh, you've been a big part of this story on every front. And you want to talk about tentacles. Your tentacles have been in all of it, and you've seen it front row, and you've probably reported on it better than just about anybody because you're one of the few honest ones out there. But they tried to crush our family, right? They impeached my father twice. They raided our homes. They deplatformed us. They debanked us. We are stripped off of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. They weaponized the DOJ against us. They weaponized the FBI against us. They spied on my father's campaign. They indicted my father 91 times. I got 112 subpoenas, the most in history. There was 34 felony counts for a sham trial in New York City under Alvin Bragg. You saw Letitia James try and bankrupt our company with these faux judgments. Again, we've won every single one of them since then. They took my father off the ballot in Colorado. They took my father off the ballot in Maine. They did everything they could to destroy a man, to destroy a family, to destroy a movement. And then they tried to kill my father. And about 3 years ago, I came up with it. And I just was sitting there one day. I go, they're just trying to put us under siege in every way, shape, and form. They want us to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on legal fees. They want to destroy our family. They want to see us embarrassed. They want to see us canceled. They want to see us all in jail. They are laying siege to our family and really our country and our movement. And I thought about starting to write a book. And sure enough, right after that, Butler happened, where they tried to kill my father. And then 8 weeks later, they tried to kill him again at Trump International. And then you saw what they did to Charlie. Under Siege came out 3 days before that madman put a bullet in our friend. And that would have been the final chapter to this. They have done everything they could to crush America, to crush our family, to crush the MAGA movement, to destroy everything we believe in, which is faith and God and the American flag and the Constitution and the First Amendment. And honestly, I had to tell the whole story. And I'm talking about a very, very, grainy, detailed story behind the scenes for every one attack that you saw out there in the public, the way they hit our family and our entire movement, behind the scenes. And listen, I didn't have executive branch protections, Dinesh. You know that better than anybody. So guess how they tried to get to my father? By taking me down, by destroying the company that I run, which he spent his entire life building. And so, it's a great story about that war, but it's also a great story about how good triumphed. And despite the nonsense, despite the media being 100% against our family and against conservatives and against our nation, we won. We beat these guys. We won. And I've never been more proud of the journey, as brutal as it was.
I mean, in some ways, this all represents, I think, a huge turn in American politics because they would not have done this, I don't think, to Romney or to McCain. They are afraid not of the GOP so much as of MAGA. They're afraid of your dad in particular and what he represents. As you've thought about that, as someone really again, just alongside your dad, what is it about your dad and about MAGA that makes otherwise normal people go to such abnormal lengths? In other words, people talk about Trump derangement syndrome. I try to promote Dinesh derangement syndrome, but I'm a pale imitation of your dad. But what I'm getting at is, what is it about him that sets people off so that they become raving and dangerous lunatics?
You know, I mean, McCain was owned by everybody. Romney was owned by everybody. I mean, they were all conformists, right? I mean, they went to D.C. They made no difference whatsoever. Listen, my father is controversial, and he has this unvarnished honesty. If he thinks we're being ripped off by China, he'll tell you we're being ripped off by China. If he thinks it's wrong, that tons of fentanyl are being smuggled into our country and killing all of our youth, then he'll say it very loud. If he thinks it's insane that a 6'5" man my size is swimming in collegiate women's sports, he'll come out and say it, and he doesn't give a damn. He does not care. He does not care to be politically correct. And by the way, he's bucked the entire system. I mean, this is a guy who's been in DC 10 times before he was president, all building a hotel, by the way, which I was building, who literally went to Washington DC, who self-funded a campaign and built beat the greatest political dynasty, maybe of the last century, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton at their own game, with no support from anyone, no endorsements in 2016, right? And then turned the whole system upside down. Believe me, he went out there and he was flicking the hornet's nest time and time again, and the hornet's nest was pissed and they came after him. They didn't go after him that way in 2016. I mean, you had the media that didn't treat him fair and, et cetera, but they didn't go after him. You know when they went after him? When he decided to rerun for president of the United States, because they realized what a great threat he was. And so, I think it's why Americans love him. I think it's why, he's the greatest rhino hunter in the history of the world. Dinesh, he's killed more rhinos in Washington, D.C. than anybody in history. They're all gone. And now you finally have a party that's fighting, and you have the most powerful Republican Party ever, and you've got the weakest Democratic Party, and he's throwing so much lead in the air that the Democrats and the media can't even counter narrative anymore. I mean, he's doing such a damn good job, and he's making this country very proud. So I love the man to death, and I am one of the few who's nonstop stood on that stage every single day for 12 years. I mean, he went down that escalator, I was on that stage, and I have never left. And it hasn't been easy. They put a lot of arrows in my back, and I became the most subpoenaed person in American history for doing it. But I'll never stop fighting because I believe in this country. I love this country. I love everything it stands for. And it was going to hell under these, imbeciles.
I mean, one thing that's happened to you, it's happened to me, but I think it's also happened to your dad, is that we start out with a certain kind of nice guy presumption about our opponents. And we extend all kinds of courtesies and generosities to them until we discover that there's a gangsterism on their side that takes advantage of our goodwill. I mean, if I look at your dad in the first term, he made a lot of efforts to sort of meet people halfway. And I think had they treated him decently, he would have continued in that path. He's almost like Mel Gibson in the beginning of the movie The Patriot. He's minding his own business. He doesn't really want to join the Revolutionary War. He doesn't really feel like he has a big stake in it. But when essentially injustice comes to his front door and he sees it up close, he can't unsee it. Then he's like, all right, well, I guess this is what you're asking for. So you're going to get a very different guy going to the war. I think your dad now has been, in a way, remade by the gangsterization that he's experienced. So the things you describe in your book have actually produced a different sort of Trump 47 than the Trump 45. The Trump 45 was actually downright great, but the Trump 47 is something else to behold.
Oh, I was telling people a year ago, a year and a half ago, he will win the race, and it's going to be Trump on steroids, right? And listen, now we have the House, we have the Senate, we have 6-3 majority in the Supreme Court. Obviously, we have the executive branch, and you have a cabinet of absolute fighters. I think the Mel Gibson analogy is spot on, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton deleted 33,000 emails. Could you imagine? They made up sham trials against my father, $130,000. They closed down New York for 4 months, right? I mean, shut down the epicenter of this country to try and charge him with 34, faux BS convictions. She deleted 33,000 emails while under a congressional subpoena. Laughed about it. Oh, haha, what did I do with, bleach? Did I do it with, what did I do? Just delete it? And he was graceful. I was there. I was right by his side when she called him to concede that night. And wow, was he graceful. Do you think they would have done that to Donald Trump? Donald Trump would have been in Alcatraz at this point, or a modern day equivalent of it, had he deleted 33,000 emails. They funded dirty dossiers against my father, making up stories that he liked to do certain things that was totally fabricated. Dinesh, I was the guy that was getting the calls from the FBI saying, I hear you have secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower communicating directly with the Kremlin. We didn't have secret servers. The BS that they made up, the stories that they told, the lawfare, we probably spent $400 million defending a company against bogus attacks and all because of their lies and their games. And the entire time he was graceful to all these people who had clearly broken the law just because he didn't want the spiral down effect of the country. And then over the last week, I get to hear, oh, they're politically prosecuting James Comey because he lied directly to Ted Cruz on camera. Unequivocally, he lied. I don't want to hear it from these people. I mean, their entire government, their entire FBI, was geared toward taking down Donald Trump or people that supported him, i.e. January 6th. But yet, they would break into the iPhone of every person who walked into the Capitol. And yet, you have two people who tried to blow off his head and somehow they can't manage to find their way into their iPhones, right? I think this entire country finds it incredibly disingenuous.
I have to say I don't normally laugh out loud, but at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, when Erica Kirk did that very beautiful, I forgive the shooter, and your dad goes, he goes, I'm a little more reluctant to forgive. I don't really wish my enemies all that well. And I thought about that a little bit, and it occurred to me that, look, as individuals, we're called to be big-hearted, but your dad is also the chief magistrate. I mean, your dad is in an official position, and all these people who did all this stuff need to have some legal accountability. So I want to emphasize how important I think it is that not just Comey. I mean, Comey was the tip of the iceberg, right? He was the consigliere and maybe Brennan and Clapper,
Sure.
But there are other people who were directing them who said, yeah, let's make this happen. So I really do hope that accountability
How about
goes...
Joe Biden? How about Joe Biden? You remember when they raided Mar-a-Lago, I was the guy that got the call from my team on the ground, and they said, FBI's raiding Mar-a-Lago on behalf of National Archives, on behalf of NARA. And I go, give me a break. What, like a glorified public library is going to raid a former president's house and a guy running for it? Like, give me a break. And Biden gets up, oh, I know nothing about this. I've never heard of it. And then sure enough, a year later, he admits that he knew everything about it and that, Merrick Garland and everybody was calling the shots and they were telling them to do the raids and they were planting folders on my father's, in my father's office on the floor for, snapshots and everything they did. I mean, look at Roger Stone. I mean, CNN was outside his house as his house was getting raided at 5 o'clock in the morning in Florida. I don't want to hear it from these guys. These guys were the crookedest people in the world. And thank God we've got great people in the FBI and in these agencies who actually care about protecting the homeland, as opposed to leaking files on Donald Trump to the New York Times, as James Comey so famously did.
Guys, this is a really powerful and timely book, Under Siege, My Family's Fight to Save Our Nation by Eric Trump. You can get it where books are sold, but also at erictrumpbook.com. Eric, what a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Freedom Chat. It's a next-generation messaging app designed for people who still believe privacy matters. The team just launched their alpha version. It's available today on both Android and iPhone. I'd like you to download it right now. Unlike the so-called free apps that spy on you and sell your data, Freedom Chat was built with your privacy first. Your messages are end-to-end encrypted. They're not stored on servers, and even screenshots are blocked. There's no tracking, no mining, no listening in. It's just private communication the way it should be. And Freedom Chat has no ties to big tech. It's built by people I trust, and you should too. I believe in it so much, I've created my own private channel inside Freedom Chat. It's at Dinesh D'Souza, and you can subscribe to it. So there I'm going to share some exclusive posts, some content you won't find other places. And the best part, no one can see what channels you follow, which posts you react to. It's your secure, curated feed. So if you're ready for a messenger that actually reflects your values, keeps your conversations totally private, head over to freedomchat.com. That's freedomchat.com, where freedom still means something. MyPillow is excited to announce they're having their biggest 3-in-1 sale ever, with limited edition product, a back-in-stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So let's get started. MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings. Regular price, $119.98. Now just $29.88. And once they're gone for good. My towels, they're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set. Regular price $69.98. Now only $39.98. And for the first and only time, get their limited edition premium My Pillows made with Giza cotton and a designer gusset. Queen size $17.98, kings only $19.98. Also for a limited time, when you order over $100, you get free shipping plus $100 in free digital gifts. So don't wait. Go to mypillow.com, or you can call 800-876-0227. Again, 800-876-0227. Use promo code Dinesh for the best offers ever. Quantities are limited, so order now. Once again, it's mypillow.com. Don't forget the promo code DINESH, Dinesh. Guys, I've had my friend Kim Bright on the podcast before. She doesn't really need an introduction, but she is the founder and CEO of Brightcore Nutrition, and she is just an all-round expert on all things to keep your body healthy and in shape and in one piece, and also diagnosing all these kinds of threats that come to your body, sometimes without even you really knowing about it. Now, Kim, I got to say that you have taken me by surprise with a wacko article, this outrageous link you sent me, and it has to do with immortality, and some people around the world, in China and Russia, Putin and Xi are apparently implicated. They're talking about trying to achieve immortality through some sort of organ transplants. I don't know if you've heard this phrase, but I've heard the phrase transhumanism. It's kind of an effort to try to extend our lives indefinitely through technology. Talk a little bit about this article and the context for it. In other words, I think people are intrigued by this kind of stuff because we are facing a real problem with mortality in this country and around the world.
Well, Xi and Putin and Kim Jong-un were all walking together over there and just talking about it, laughing about it, and saying, oh, my goodness, well, we can live to be immortals. We can be immortals. And they were talking about using other people's organs and organ transplants. And then we can get as many as we want. We can just continue getting them. And I mean, they're so evil to act like these people that they would be getting the organ transplants from. And China does this a lot. Who knows where these are coming from? But the whole thing is, it's so evil, and they're treating these people like they're objects, not humans, not like they have a soul. And it's so disgusting, so evil, and that's happening while the rest of us, our life expectancy is declining. I mean, there's an article that came out, and it showed that global life expectancy is declining for the first time in 30 years, Dinesh. And it's awful.
I mean, Kim, this is, yes, on the one hand, I think you're right. You're almost describing like a horror movie, right? Where there's this sort of remote location, and what are they doing? They're making body parts that they harvest from people so that the elite can live longer. But you're saying that, look, there is a problem here, which is that really from the beginning of time, I mean, life expectancy in biblical times was 30 or 40. Then even a century ago, it was around 60 or 65. It's been climbing pretty steadily to 75, 78. But it's very disturbing that this is not only leveled off, but as you say, in a lot of places, life expectancy is actually going down. So this is a repudiation of the American dream. It's a repudiation of the idea that we're trying to make, as we learn more, we have better science, we have better medicine, that people are going to live longer. But what do you think, Kim, is the reason why global life expectancy has leveled out or is even declining? Why is that?
Well, in 2014 is when it peaked at 78.8 years. And then during the next several years, it fell modestly before it tumbled downward in 2020. We all know what happened in 2020 and 2021. So, they want to make it seem, Dinesh, like COVID was the reason for lower life expectancy throughout the 20th century. But clearly the decline was before COVID in 2014. But the sharpest decline didn't happen, since 2020. It didn't happen when the pandemic started, but it happened since the vaccine was introduced. So that, I think, tells us a lot. And then, of course, COVID now is no longer in the top 10 causes of death. There's more people dying from suicide, which is, now we're getting into the mental health aspect, and we're getting into how our, diet and environment and everything is affecting us. And, life expectancy isn't bouncing back the way that we would expect it to if COVID was the primary cause of the sharp decline back in 2020, 2021. But when we look at all the complications and the premature deaths that we've seen since the COVID vaccine, Dinesh, was widely administered, this seems, the vaccine seems like the culprit. But to answer your question, people are aging faster than ever before. And again, this goes back to all the toxins that are in our air, our water, our food, how our soil is so unbalanced with, it doesn't have the microorganisms that contribute to health and contribute to healthy plants. So, that's the problem. But then, there's other external factors. And again, I go back to vaccines, because vaccines haven't been around that long. So I think they play a role too.
Kim, it almost seems like people are dealing with this in the wrong way. In other words, look, all of us are trying to sort of fight, father time. All of us are trying to we get older and we're trying to fight that and look good and look better and stay healthy. But it looks like people are trying to do it sort of cosmetically, right? I'm gonna use this cream, or I'm going to take these injections, or I'm going to go under this plastic surgery. But in a way, we're not looking, I think what you're saying is we're not really looking at what is causing this accelerated aging process. And there are things that can be done about that. Talk about that, what's happening inside of us that's causing this acceleration, and how do you fight it?
Well, I can tell you, I, for one, I never had plastic surgery. I don't use the fancy Botox, all that kind of stuff. I'll be 71 soon. I think it looked pretty dang good for 71. I stay hydrated. I exercise regularly. I get enough sleep. I reduce my stress so my cortisol levels aren't going crazy. I eat organic, nutrition-rich foods, especially fermented foods, especially kimchi. So for all of you out there, if you don't stay hydrated, guess what? You dry up like a prune. That's what your skin looks like. So stay hydrated. Your electrical currents in your body can't communicate right. You start getting sick. You start having problems with all your other organs. Part of that's due to not being hydrated, eating the right foods. But you know what most people don't know, Dinesh, is how important fermented foods are. And kimchi especially is king of fermented foods. It can actually fight aging on a cellular level, because there are studies out there that show us, they did in vitro studies that show us, they took and put in test tubes, they put young cells, middle-aged cells, and older cells. And they used hydrogen peroxide to speed up the aging process. That's the acceptable format. And then what they did is they put kimchi extract actually in each of those test tubes. And guess what? As soon as they introduced the kimchi extract It slowed the aging across the boards, no matter what the age of these cells were. So when we slow aging on that cellular level, we're slowing the aging of our tissues, which is a combination of our cells, which ultimately is going to slow the aging of the entire body. Now, isn't that amazing? And isn't that wonderful that we could do something so simple, something easy, not invasive? We don't have to have needles in our face. We don't have to go get cut on and do all this stuff. We have to start looking at what we can do naturally.
It seems like what you're saying is you can improve the internal workings of your body so that your body will actually do the job for you.
Yes.
And I've actually been kind of amazed at the sort of superfood that kimchi is. And I'm one of those guys who probably won't eat the actual kimchi by going to a Korean restaurant. There's probably one in our neighborhood, but I like the idea of being able to just, I wake up, I have a tall glass of water, I've got the kimchi, and I get it right into my system. So talk a little bit about your offer for my listeners and viewers. Give them a good deal so that they understand that this is not only a great way to help your body, but this is going to be a deal that you're going to want to jump on.
Well, before I give them the deal, I want to tell them what it's going to help them with.
Yep.
Because we've helped so many people with their digestion, their regularity within days. They're not bloated or constipated anymore. They tell us they don't have gas coming out both ends. Their immunity is enhanced and enriched. And people used to get sick all the time. They're not getting sick anymore, or they're getting sick far less, Dinesh. And also as we become older, we become more susceptible to antimicrobial threats. So kimchi is antimicrobial. That means antibacterial, antifungal, and anti-parasitic. And so this is and anti-bad bacteria. This is so important as we age that we have to keep those good guys, those good critters in our guts. So when people take the Kimchi One, our product, they are getting all these benefits and energy levels. Of course, when you have an overgrowth of fungus, an overgrowth of bad bacteria, an overgrowth of parasites, they are sucking the life out of you. They're sucking the energy out of you. So you have chronic fatigue. So these people that are taking it, their chronic fatigue goes away. They're active again. They're out dancing. They're out gardening. And it reduces obesity. People are calling us and saying, oh my gosh, I went down a waist size in my pants. They're looking younger. And a lot of these people that had obesity problems, they had such stubborn weight issues. They're noticing those have changed. Their skin's glowing because our gut health is directly seen on our skin. When we have gut problems, we can see it on our skin. When we have a good gut, our skin glows. And, even people with the post-vaccination syndrome, Dinesh, they couldn't pinpoint where, their tiredness, their aches and pains, their inability to exercise were coming from. And now after taking Kimchi One, they found relief. It's all gone. So let me give you the special today.
Yep.
You can go to mybrightcore.com/Dinesh. Again, that's mybrightcore.com/Dinesh. And you can get 25% off of your order of our Kimchi One using code Dinesh. Or what I really like people to do, because I like people to feel comfortable, to ask questions, you're not going to be able to do that online, to know, anything that you want to about this product that I haven't covered, call 888-927-5980. We've got people that are trained. They want to talk to you and make sure this product's right for you. And we give you up to 50% off plus free shipping when you call in. And if you're one of the first 100 callers, we're also going to give you a free bottle of vitamin D3, which is excellent for your overall health, bone health, immunity, everything. So again, that's 888-927-5980, Dinesh.
Guys, I recommend you call, take advantage. That's the best deal. That's the best offer. Kim Bright, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Have a beautiful day.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.